Continue with another beautiful reading. This one is from Whispers from Eternity, a book of prayer poems and demands written by Paramahansa Yogananda. This demand is number 108, demand to see God in everything. O Father, may I behold Thee above, beneath, behind, around, wherever I turn my gaze. Train the children of my senses never to stray from Thee, who dwellest at the heart of everything. Turn my eyes inward to Thy changeless beauty. Attune my ears to silence, that I may hear Thy subtlest music. Breathe on me the heavenly scent of Thy sacred presence. Orient-wise I will worship Thee, placing the candles of my 5 senses on the altar of my love. Thus I will contact Thee in the first pale shafts of dawn, absorb Thee in the bright light of noon, expand in Thee with the hidden glow of twilight, and merge in Thee in the silver moonlight. Always will I keep alight on my inner altar, the mystic taper of my love for Thee. So, seeing God in everything, a wise endeavor indeed, and that is what our spiritual life calls upon us to do. So today our topic is In Surrender Lies Victory. And this is not what we would usually think of the surrender of just giving ourselves up in a state of passivity and giving up our will to another person or to life itself. This surrender requires great commitment and energy, because what we are giving up are what Yogananda referred to are the whims and limiting understanding of our ego. And yet we are so ingrained and rooted and attached to our ego consciousness, our thoughts, our opinions, our beliefs, our wanting to have things be a certain way, have a certain outcome, that we lose our perspective, we lose clarity. There is an anecdote that Yogananda tells of a group of devotees who were planning an event. And they came upon deciding what to serve for dessert. And half the group wanted to serve rice pudding for dessert. And the other half of the group wanted tapioca pudding. And so they fought and fought and fought endlessly to the point they just stopped talking to each other. Yogananda said, why didn't they choose to serve both desserts? In their diminished state of consciousness, that was not an option. And this may seem a silly example, but it perfectly reflects how we become established in a very low state of consciousness when we're focused on one outcome. Our way, we feel, is the best, and it needs to happen, and it must happen, and anything else has to be rejected. And there we go, sinking into lower states of consciousness and shrinking our awareness. Our affirmation today is about awareness. When we're not aware, we're in a cage of confusion, of dullness, of diminished understanding. So awareness is of the essence, to be able to understand the more refined currents of life, the bigger picture of life, not just run with our own small, limited story. When we're in a greater state of awareness, our perspective is expanded and we have clarity and equanimity of mind to be able to assess whatever is unfolding in our lives. This was a state that Jesus found himself in when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane. That was the night he was going to be captured and then soon after crucified. He had gone into this garden with his disciples, and he knew what was going to become of him. He was clear. He had that state of awareness. He had surrendered his will to the divine will. And he asked his disciples, pray and watch. Watch and pray with me tonight. Otherwise, you might succumb to temptation. The disciples, not knowing what was going to become of their beloved teacher, were tired. It was a long day. For them, it was yet another day. Tomorrow they'd start anew, and they succumbed to tiredness, and the intention to watch and pray was forgotten. That state of watchfulness and prayer was essential to Jesus. He could have also succumbed to temptation and told God, this is enough, I've already done enough, this has been an incredible journey, and crucifixion, no thank you, I'm not into that, I just refuse to go there. But he didn't. He did ask God, if this cup can be passed from me, but thy will be done. He was divinely attuned to divine will. Whether we're attuned to divine will or not, divine will always prevails. So whether you want to go your way and have divine will prevail, or flow with life, flow with those higher, more refined energies that are coming into your life and lifting you up, bringing you into a higher state of consciousness. The disciples were tired because their consciousness wasn't as refined as Jesus's consciousness or a master's consciousness. Their consciousness abides up at the point between their eyebrows, at the spiritual eye. And that is their headquarters. And that is where they apply all their attention and their energy. So the senses, the body, and the mind do not take out massive amounts of energy. That's where we lose, we hemorrhage massive amounts of energy because we're so locked into the world of the senses. Our body, we need to feed it, we need to rest it, it's tired, it aches, I need to drink, I need to sleep, and on it goes. That energy is constantly drawn downward. If we make an effort to hold our energy up at the point between the eyebrows, we are building willpower. And willpower is essential on our spiritual life. It's essential in anything in life if we want to succeed. But in the spiritual life, it's number one. And in that willpower, Swami Kriyananda says it's not a hard, strong willpower. It's a willingness to open ourselves to life, to say yes to life, to say yes to whatever comes down the pike, whether we like it or we don't like it. We just say yes, we surrender to it. And in that state of surrender, of acceptance, surrendering is accepting the reality for what it is. In that state of acceptance, then we see where change is possible. Because you're established in the real. Only when you're in the real, there are possibilities for you to move on. Otherwise, we're just rejecting, we're pushing away, and we're becoming smaller and more solid and condensed and caged and shrunken. Nothing comes from that experience. So, how do we meet life when things come into our awareness that do not match our hopes, our expectations, our wants, our desires. The reading from the Bhagavad Gita today was very beautiful. And there is a part that speaks about the strength that the devotee acquires when you live totally, you surrender your will totally to the divine. And there are many beautiful qualities: humbleness, truthfulness, harmlessness, patience and honor, reverence for the wise, purity, and there's several others. But the one that really captured my attention was the ever tranquil heart, heedless of good or adverse fortune, and always with that uplifted attention to the divine, to God, unceasingly attending to the divine. That ever tranquil heart is a wise heart. That is the heart of the seasoned practitioners, of the masters. When Yogananda was a youngster, he was just so eager for the divine experience that in his autobiography, it is well documented how he escaped to the Himalayas, and he just couldn't get enough of saints and sages that had that divine experience. One of those is Master Mahashaya, who is also referred to as the blissful devotee. He lived anchored in that divine experience, in the sweetness and gentleness of the heart. And that's what young Mukunda found so irresistible. In the company of somebody who has surrendered their life to the divine, there is an aura of benedictions that they exude and that uplifts us naturally. They bring us into a state of joy. And this wise heart, wise heart, offers us many possibilities. It doesn't deny the mind. On the contrary, it holds the mind and it strengthens it. There is a story of a young saint that lived several centuries ago in India. His name was Chaitanya, and he was a bhakti, and he just adored the divine. This is the path of devotion. And he just prayed and prayed and meditated on the divine. And there was a scholar. The scholar's name was Sarvabhauma, and he thought that he needed to teach young Chaitanya a few lessons to firm him up in the more intellectual practices. He was just much too devotional. So he came and offered young Chaitanya his instruction, and the young devotee was very grateful for this scholar's attention to him and offering him his knowledge and wisdom. So Sarvabhauma read a piece of scripture, and then he interpreted it in 25 different ways. And Chaitanya was very grateful and congratulated the scholar. He was very impressed, and the scholar said, well, this is what you need. You need to bolster your understanding of the intellect. What did you glean from this scripture, young Chaitanya? And Chaitanya went on to give him 85 different interpretations from that scripture. So at that time, Sarvabhauma decided to become Chaitanya's disciple. So in that quiet heart, we attune ourselves, we nourish ourselves, we awaken our heart to the divine experience. And we need to be more attentive to listening inwardly, to asking for that guidance. That guidance is constantly flowing through our lives. There is no time, there is no guidance. There's guidance happening now in everyone's lives. Are we aware? Are we listening? That guidance is knocking on the door of our hearts again and again and again. Are we listening? Even if you're a master, you look for that guidance. And the guidance can come, you can start in small ways, seeking guidance on something small and keep that energy flowing. It's something that you refine over time. We think that the guidance is going to come as some writing on the wall, move to Madrid, or you should marry, or you should start your own business, and that's it. It's not about the outcome. It's never about the destination. It's about what we learn in the process of moving to Madrid. What did we learn there? Madrid is inconsequential. Madrid allowed you a learning possibility. And that's what we want to do as spiritual seekers. Even Yogananda, being an avatar, he used to constantly tune in and wait for signs from Divine Mother to know how to proceed. There was once in 1951, he was hoping to go to India. He would have liked to go to India at that time, and he hadn't told many people about this plan because he was waiting for a sign and a sign and a sign. And the sign came to him. One of his young monks or somebody found out about this plan that he might be traveling to India, and he immediately requested an appointment with Yogananda to talk to him and say, how would you go away and leave me in this condition? He was going through some illness, some physical malady. And Yogananda took that as a sign. So the signs, the signals are there all the time if we care to pay attention. Our commitment to truth lives in our heart. That's where truth abides. And Yogananda said that seclusion is the price of greatness. So let's find places, times during our day to just seclude, just pull yourself away. Find time to sit quietly, to deepen your meditation. If you can't meditate, then pray. If you can't pray, read something inspiring. If you can't read, just follow your breath. Go into that quiet, into the sanctuary of the heart, and just sit there. Seclusion also means pulling yourself away from situations, pulling yourself away from the frenetic activity of the world, pulling yourself away from whatever is unfolding in front of you, not being so invested in it. And in those spaces, this is where our experience begins to grow and expand. This is where we learn how to watch and pray, as Jesus told his disciples, or as Yogananda told his disciples, be awake and ready, awake to reality. Because in that state of meditation, of prayer, of awareness, that's where your real life is happening. That's where you meet your appointment with life. That is reality. Everything else, all our situations, our dramas, and our issues are like soap bubbles. They look real. Some are small, some are large, some are huge. They shine, they move. But once they burst, what's left? Nothing. Established in the matrix of your being, in the inner silence, aligning yourself with the divine presence. That's where you truly come alive. That's where you truly live. And that is the wisdom of those who have surrendered their will to divine will.